around us. I want to start today with a poem by James Dillett Freeman called The Traveler. He has put on invisibility. Dear Lord, I cannot see. But this I know, although the road ascends and passes from my sight, that there will be no night, that you will take him gently by the hand and lead him along the road of life that never ends, and he will find that it is not death, but dawn. I do not doubt that you are here as there, and you will hold him dear. Our life did not begin with birth. It is not of this earth. And this that we call death, it is no more than the opening and the closing of a door. And in your house, how many rooms there must be beyond this one, where we rest just momently. Dear Lord, I thank you for the faith that frees, the love that knows it cannot lose its own, and the love that looking through the shadow sees that you and he and I are ever one. I want to say thank you from the bottom of my heart for all of the incredible love that is poured into myself, into our family, for these last 4 weeks. I can tell you that I can be up here today because of your love and because of your prayers. You know, these are the things that have absolutely sustained us through this time. I thank you on behalf of Sean's son, Keegan. I thank you. So many of you wrote specific notes to him, and that touched him so deeply. And of course, his brother Bill, sisters Barbara and Casey, and his mom and dad. And I thank you for everything that you have done for us. You know, the food that has even continued, and I received over 200 cards and Facebook messages and emails and texts, and I just can't begin to tell you what it meant to me. And today, you know, coming back, I was both nervous and excited. You know, of course, nervous because this is probably the most vulnerable that I'll ever be, but excited because we're family. And I know that this loss is not just mine, that this loss is our loss, because all of us who know Sean loved him. And for those of you who didn't and maybe are here for the first time, my beloved husband Sean slipped through the thin veil of life 4 weeks ago today at the age of 44. So today I want to share some things with you, a couple different things, and I want to share the truth first of all, because I just want any rumors to be alleviated about what happened. And I know that in the time that I have that you may still have questions, and ask me. In fact, I prefer that you ask me, because that way you know that you're getting exactly what the truth is in this. Now, although his death certificate will say that Sean died from natural causes, my husband died from complications of the disease of alcoholism, and that is what ultimately took his life. So I want to tell you a little bit about our story. How many of us remember the ice storm of 2007? And for most people that I talk to, it's like, oh, the ice storm of 2007. And for me, it's like, oh, the ice storm of 2007, because it was actually at a cleanup out here when our big tree fell that I first really met Sean. And here comes this guy, and he's got this leather jacket on with the KC Chiefs to come and do cleanup, which I thought was interesting. But in meeting him that day, initially the romantic interest really wasn't there. What I found out about Sean that day is, number one, that he was a singer, and number two, that he used to be in ministry at James River Assembly. And so I was quite intrigued about how he made the journey from there to here. Quite intrigued by that. And so I wanted to know more. And so, you know, we talked a couple times, let's get together. You know, he was as interested in my story as I was in his. And so finally he emails me and he says, well, I'd like to take you to my favorite steakhouse, which at that point was like, oh, that feels a little bit like more than gonna get together and talk, but still, it was fine. So we go to a steakhouse, And about halfway through the meal, I realized, oh my gosh, this kind of feels more like a date than just getting together. So I say to him, you do know that I'm going to be 50, and I have grandchildren. I'm a grandmother. and this beautiful 38-year-old man said, I know. And that was the beginning. And I have to tell you that, and this is not to take away at all from my relationship with my first husband. We were so young when we first got together. But I can tell you that this experience with Sean was truly one of the most amazing love experiences that either of us had ever had. And it was like two energies filled with love just merging together to create this amazing experience of love. And what I can tell you is that in the 7 years that I had with Sean, that love never waned, ever. You know, it only deepened through the course of time. So in the beginning, Sean shares with me that he is a recovering alcoholic and that he had been sober for about 6 months to that point. He also shared with me very much in detail what his relapses looked like. Well, I have had no experience relative to alcoholism, so I have no files in there saying, oh, this is what this is about. For me, it was like, okay, no problem, this all sounds good. Just an FYI, my filing cabinet is filled with files now. I was thinking, I think it's a little bit warm. Are we feeling a little warm? Maybe we could just get a little bit of air. Thank you. I was thinking about the gift that we are given when we incarnate into these bodies, that we don't know what lies ahead of us. And I thought about if somebody 7 years ago would have come to me and said, you know what? You are going to have the most amazing experience of love with this man. You are going to have this deep spiritual connection. You are going to have just wonderful things along the way in this journey. But also along the way, you're going to have some things that are going to bring you deep pain, and pain that is going to drop you to your knees on many, many occasions. And after 7 years, he's going to die while you guys are still deeply in love. And I thought, thank you, God, that I didn't know ahead of time. Would I have made a different choice? I think that the love that we had, I couldn't have made a different choice, because there was nothing more that I wanted than to share my life with him. I like in the One Country song, it says, I could have missed the pain, but I'd have had to miss the dance. And I want to tell you, I wouldn't have missed this dance for anything in the world, What I want to share with you is that Sean was an alcoholic who struggled with sobriety for 6 of the 7 years that we were together. And Sean did not keep his alcoholism a secret. Of course, that could have been because his wife was a minister, and here it is, Now, I know that AA is Alcoholics Anonymous, and I understand the reasoning behind that, but I have to tell you, for me personally, that I think that there's a huge disservice that is done in that to the disease itself, and here's what I mean by that. Before I met Sean, I was ignorant of the disease of alcoholism and addiction. I didn't know. And so I was one of the people who had that thought process, just stop. Just quit. Don't pick it up. You have a choice. And really, as I sat with this last night, and I was thinking about really where was my consciousness at that time, in all honesty, I recognized that I also had kind of this subconscious judgment. These people are weak. And really, I could almost be dismissive to those drunks and druggies, and to even recognize and realize that in myself, I thought, I think that's the way that a lot of people feel because we don't talk about it. Because it's something that is so quiet, and so I have this deep yearning and desire to help educate and to help bring this more to the forefront so that we can get past some of these not right thinking that we have about the disease of alcoholism and addiction. You know, most of you knew Sean, and you knew what an incredibly beautiful light that he was here. We saw him on Wednesdays and Sundays, and we saw him at different things. And I want to share with you that I received over 200 cards personally to my home. And I want to share with you some of the things that you shared with me about Sean. We will always remember Sean's beautiful smile, his beautiful singing voice, and the love that he expressed for everyone. Another one said, Sean always gave me hope. Another one said, Sean was a very special, irreplaceable being. I'm sure this is known, but it must be repeated because he touched so many lives without realizing it. Kind-hearted and genuine people are hard to come by. Another said, we feel very blessed to have known Sean. He brought a sweet, gentle spirit into our lives. Another said, Sean will always hold a fond place in our memories. He was one of the most welcoming people to us when our journey led us to unity. He always showed a genuine interest and concern in the lives of others. And another one said, Sean was loved by all of us because of his warmth, big smile, the talent he shared with us, but mostly because of the love that you had for him. We saw him through your eyes and got to know him through your love. He made you more than happy, and that was important for us. You saw in him what he couldn't see in himself, and because of that, you gave him the best years of his life. Sean recognized that and knew how blessed he was. We also know that he gave you the best years of your life. One would have to be beyond blind and deaf not to see and feel that fulfillment in you. So these are things that we saw. This is how we saw Sean. But what I want to share with you is that most of you did not see the daily struggle that my husband experienced because of alcoholism and because of the shame and guilt and because of the harsh sometimes judgment that not only that he knew others had about him, but that he then put on himself. And I remember him, many times telling me, you have no idea what goes on in my head. And when you think about that, we could all see the brilliance of this man's light. We see that brilliance. We can feel that brilliance. And my point in that being that is how strong this disease is in many people's lives. That even in the, Sean would spend, daily, he would spend time on opening his mind to just loving himself, to just feeling like he was worthy and okay, and not define himself by the alcoholism. But it was such a large thing for him that ultimately what we know is that it was that very thing that took his life. I got to tell you that through this experience of active alcoholism with my husband, I can tell you that these last, especially 6 years, it was like the best of times and the worst of times. And many of you journeyed through some of those times with me. But through that, a couple of things happened for me. And one is that I've developed an incredibly deep sense of compassion for anyone who deals with a disease of alcoholism or addiction in any way. And we've talked a number of weeks ago that compassion is the desire to help alleviate that suffering. And however I can be a part of that, I want to be a part of that for other people because I saw how much my husband suffered. The second thing that came out of that, and it actually came to my realization through a beautiful poem that someone wrote right after Sean died, and it talked about that there are angels that come into this earthly realm, and they're not here, they're not supposed to be here for our life, and they're not here to save us, but they're here to teach us how to save ourselves. And as soon as I read it, I knew that part of what the journey was with Sean and I is that he gave me the opportunity through the act of alcoholism to save myself, to learn how to find my own peace, how to find my own center when things around me were falling apart. And I am eternally grateful for that. Now, I want to share with you, I don't have the answer today to this whole idea of alcoholism and addiction, but what I do know is that Sean taught me so much about unconditional love. And interestingly, I think that part of the reason that he taught me so much about it was because I think he sought that so much from the world around him that he himself became it. And in becoming it, he modeled for me what unconditional love looked like. And so in the end, in that maybe 11-day period, there were about 3 days at the very last there. And I got to tell you that through this entire period of the relapse and then part of the detoxing, I was in the most peaceful, centered, loving place that I had ever been during a relapse. And the 3 days that he was kind of in a detox state were the most connected days that we've had in a long, long time. And in these days, we had the opportunity, it's almost like it was foreknown in a sense, that to tell each other how much we loved each other. He at one point, he even walked back into the room and he said to me, he said, "Sue, you are one of the strongest women that I know." And he turned around and he turned back around and he goes, "No, you are one of the strongest people that I know. I have watched you through the years gain your strength." And as I look back on that, and I look back on these days, I'm so grateful that I was in a place, because he taught me through so many relapses how to be in that place, that our last 3 days together were that beautiful. I mean, they were beautiful. And I know without a doubt that my husband left this world knowing that he was unconditionally loved by me. And I'm so grateful for that. I do want to say, because I'm always one to say that, I'm not saying here that we don't set healthy boundaries. It's absolutely important to set those healthy boundaries. But there's a difference between setting healthy boundaries out of unrighteous judgment and setting healthy boundaries with love. And what I absolutely do know, is that love is the one and only presence and power. And that even though Sean didn't have that healing in his physical life, that he is healed now, and I can trust that, and I can know that beyond a shadow of a doubt, which leads me to the second thing that I want to talk to you about, and that is that Sean had no fear of death. It was almost as if Sean knew that he was not going to be here into old age. He would talk to me about that many times. He didn't think that he was going to grow old. And in fact, I really believe that when his best friend, Don Freeman, made his transition, Sean started making plans so things would be in place, because it scared him. And everything was, in place in a folder with written notes about everything. And, hear me on this, he did not take his own life. He was in the process of detox when he passed. But we would have conversations about life beyond this physical realm, and he knew that, what we always teach her, that we are energy compressed into this physical body, and this is not the reality of us, that, our spirit goes on. And I want to share with you what the last words of his will said. He said, "I would also like my ashes disposed of by the cremation company. No one keeps them, please. I am not that body. I am you, right here, right now, in divine mind, loving as always, and free." And that, can imagine how much peace that brought us, to read that is, that's truly what he knew. So about a week after he passed, I got an email from a friend of mine. And this email was talking about a book called The Afterlife of Billy Fingers. And in the email, this person said that they came across this book and it really intrigued them. So I got on my Kindle right away and ordered the book. And for the next 5 or 6 nights, I read this book every single night. And I cried with joy for what I feel Sean was experiencing. Now, I don't resonate with every single thing in this book, but I felt as if Sean was talking to me and telling me about his experience through this book. Billy had spent about 62 years in the throes of addiction and passed away. And what the story is, it's his sister that wrote the book, and this was her real experience, that he was, showing up for her and telling her about what his experience was beyond this physical realm. So I want to share with you a few things that it said. Right after he died, he said, the first thing that happens is bliss. At least it was like that in my case. And I know if any of you have read near-death experience books, they talk about this. And they talk about a tunnel, and he calls it more of a chamber. And he said there were these blue silvery lights in the chamber, and even though I didn't have my body anymore, it felt like I did, and that it was being healed. And he said it wasn't just the wounds from my car accident that were healed. In the first nanosecond that the lights touched me, they erased any harm I suffered during my lifetime, physical, mental, emotional, or otherwise. And he said those healing lights had a festive feeling, like they were cheering me on, saying, welcome home, son. And that's only like a little nugget of what I was reading every night and being reminded that Sean truly, he's no longer confined to the physical body, that he is so free and there's no addiction going on. It's only just pure love and pure light. And I have to share this with you too. In the last days, some of the things that were happening, because I find it so fascinating. There was kind of a little bit of like a hallucination thing going on at times. And so he would be sitting and he would be looking at his hands and he'd be like, honey, do you see that? And I'd be like, no, honey, I don't see that. And he'd go, whoa, it's like my hands are just energy and they're merging together. And he did that like 3 or 4 times. And at the time, I'm like, oh, that's interesting. At one point, he was in the kitchen, and all of a sudden he looks and he goes, whoa. And I'm like, what? And he's looking around and he goes, people have no idea what's here. And I think probably one of the biggest things for me was, as I shared, Don Freeman was one of his best friends, and he said at one point, honey, I saw Don. And I said, you did? He said, yeah. And I said, well, what? And he said, he was just standing there like this. And so as I look in hindsight and look at all these things, I really think that he was already kind of merged in both worlds. And what I knew when I found him that morning was that once that he moved into that freedom, he wasn't coming back. He wasn't going to come back into that. And he knew that ultimately Keegan and I were strong enough to handle it. And I'm sure we are. I'm sure we will be, but so what now? I will share with you that this journey of grief is a whole new journey for me. Mostly I'm used to having, maybe there's a day when I get a little down and I can do things to move myself out of that ultimately. And what I found with this journey of grief is that right now it kind of has a life of its own. And there are days that I feel so strong. And I've even had a couple days when I felt so strong, I'm like, I got this thing licked. Surprise. Because then I'll get up one morning and I can't do anything. I mean, I literally can't do anything. And so I'm learning, slow but sure, to just let myself go with those days and feel what is there. But what I want to share with you is that in all the communication that you guys have given me, you've said over and over again, let us be here for you. Let us be here to lift you up and help you take that next step. And I say yes, because right now, I don't feel strong enough to do this by myself. I don't understand it. And it's the biggest journey I think I've ever had to make in my life. And so thank you for loving me and supporting me and my family, and just for being there through this. And I want to just say a huge thank you. I didn't even say thank you to, Kenneth for being there that first Sunday and just, whoosh, stepping in here when I know that had to be so hard, and Dee, stepping right in there, and Cindy, and everything throughout all the course of time for everything that all of you have done for us. And I want to say thank you especially to my family, to my beautiful daughter and my son. He flew in immediately, and I don't know where I would be without these blessed beings. And then to my mom, who is staying with me. She might think there's an end date in that, but but it's made a huge difference for me to have them here. So I want to close with this quote from Billy Fingers. It says, "Try not to take death too seriously. As a matter of fact, try not to take life too seriously. You'd enjoy yourself a lot more. That's one of the secrets of life." You want to know another secret? Saying goodbye isn't as serious as it seems either, because we will meet again. And I know that. So thank you, thank you, thank you.